In the quiet village of Maehwa, nestled at the foot of the Jiri Mountains during the waning years of the Joseon dynasty, lived a young hunter named Du Yoon. Orphaned at a young age, he resided with his ailing grandmother, his days filled with the arduous tasks of hunting and woodcutting to sustain their meager existence. Du Yoon, though possessing a physique that spoke of hidden strength and a proficiency in martial arts, was often perceived as slow-witted, a gentle giant easily taken advantage of by the village's more cunning inhabitants. He was the frequent target of ridicule and exploitation, particularly from the wealthy Seo Jun, a lackey of the corrupt local official Byun Hak-do. One sweltering afternoon, as the sun beat down mercilessly, Du Yoon returned from a fruitless hunt, his heart heavy with the thought of his grandmother's empty stomach. As he neared the village's small marketplace, a commotion caught his attention. A group of impoverished women, their faces etched with despair, were being harassed by Byun Hak-do and his henchman, Seo Jun. The women, unable to repay their debts, were being threatened with being sold into a jizang house, a fate worse than death for many. "You wretches!" Byun Hak-do's voice boomed, dripping with disdain. "Your debts are overdue. Unless you can magically conjure the silver, you'll be warming the beds of wealthy merchants." Seo Jun, a sneer playing on his lips, added, "Perhaps a few nights of persuasion will loosen your purse strings." He leered, reaching out to grab one of the women. Du Yoon, his usually placid nature simmering with indignation, stepped forward. "Leave them alone, Byun Hak-do," he said, his voice low but firm. "They have done nothing wrong." Byun Hak-do turned, his eyes narrowing at the sight of the village idiot. "Du Yoon?" he scoffed. "The slow-witted hunter dares to interfere? Do you have the silver to pay their debts?" "I have no silver," Du Yoon admitted, his fists clenching. "But I have this." He gestured towards the woods. "Let them go, and I will bring you enough firewood to cover their debts tenfold." It was a dangerous offer, one that would demand days, maybe weeks, of ceaseless, back-breaking toil. Byun Hak-do considered, a flicker of amusement in his eyes. The prospect of seeing the strong but simple Du Yoon break under the strain was tempting. "Very well," he relented, a cruel smile spreading across his face. "But if you fail, they will pay the price. And so will you." The women, their eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and fear, watched as Du Yoon disappeared into the dense forest. He worked tirelessly, his muscles screaming in protest, his hands raw and bleeding. Days bled into nights, and still he toiled, driven by the image of the women's desperate faces and the thought of his grandmother's unwavering faith in him. Meanwhile, in another part of the forest, a different kind of struggle was unfolding. Mi Ran, the daughter of a disgraced minor official, was fleeing for her life. Disguised as a man, she called herself Mi Gong-ja, traveling and trading to make a living while hiding her true identity. Her family had been framed by treacherous court officials, her father exiled, leaving her with nothing but a burning desire for justice and a secret she guarded fiercely: a stolen letter detailing Byun Hak-do's conspiracy with those very officials. Pursued by Byun Hak-do's men, who suspected her involvement, Mi Ran stumbled, her ankle twisting beneath her. She collapsed, pain shooting up her leg, her disguise threatened, her pursuers closing in. Just as they were about to seize her, a figure emerged from the shadows. Du Yoon, his axe raised, his eyes blazing with a ferocity that belied his gentle reputation. "Get away from her!" he roared, his voice echoing through the trees. The men, startled by his sudden appearance and imposing figure, hesitated. Du Yoon didn't. He charged, his axe a blur of motion, scattering the men like leaves in a storm. He turned to Mi Ran, his concern evident. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice losing its harshness. Mi Ran, still clutching her ankle, could only nod, her eyes wide with a mixture of pain and surprise. The rough, seemingly dim-witted hunter had saved her, and as she looked at him, she saw something more, a spark of courage, a hint of something deeper beneath the surface. Little did she know that this encounter, born of desperation and danger, would bind their fates together in ways neither of them could have imagined. Du Yoon, despite her protests, carefully lifted her, his strength surprising even himself. He carried her towards his small, humble home, the start of a journey, not just through the forest, but through a tangled web of deceit, danger, and ultimately, love and revolution. Mi Ran, grimacing with each jolt, protested weakly, "I can walk. I am a man of some means. Mi Gong Ja, they call me." Her attempt at bravado, however, was undermined by the tremor in her voice. Du Yun, seemingly oblivious to her attempt at maintaining her disguise, simply tightened his grip. "You're hurt," he stated plainly. His gaze focused on the path ahead. "My grandmother will know what to do." His grandmother, a woman whose years numbered 70, her back bent by time and hardship, possessed a wisdom that belied her frail appearance. Her eyes, though clouded with age, still held a sharp intelligence, and they immediately assessed Mi Ran's condition, noting the carefully concealed curves beneath the loose, masculine clothing. "She's a woman," the old woman stated, her voice raspy but firm. Du Yun blinked, seemingly surprised, but his concern didn't waver. "A woman?" he echoed, then quickly refocused. "Her ankle, it's bad." His grandmother directed him to set Mi Ran down gently on a straw mat. She examined the injury with practiced hands, her touch surprisingly gentle. "A sprain. A bad one," she pronounced. "She needs rest and a poultice." As the old woman prepared the herbal remedy, Mi Ran watched Du Yun, her initial apprehension giving way to a grudging respect. He was simple, yes, but his kindness was undeniable. And his strength. She had seen it firsthand, the way he had scattered Byun Hakdo's men. There was a power in him, a raw, untamed force that was both frightening and strangely comforting. Over the next few days, Mi Ran, forced to remain in Du Yun's humble home, found herself drawn to his quiet strength and unwavering loyalty to his grandmother. She observed his simple life, the tireless work he did to provide for them both, the gentle way he cared for the old woman. She, in turn, began to share snippets of her own story, carefully omitting the details of her family's downfall and her true identity, but revealing her literacy and knowledge of the world beyond Maehwa. Under the guise of helping him with his accounts, Du Yun, despite his physical prowess, struggled with numbers. Mi Ran began to subtly educate him, sharing stories of history and philosophy, her words carefully chosen to awaken his sense of justice and his understanding of the wider world. She discovered that beneath his slow speech and simple demeanor lay a keen mind, eager to learn, and a heart that yearned for something more than the endless cycle of toil and poverty. Meanwhile, Du Yun, his initial surprise at Mi Ran's true gender having long faded, found himself increasingly captivated by her. He was drawn to her quick wit, her hidden sadness, and the fire that burned beneath her calm exterior. He knew she was hiding something, that her story was incomplete, but he trusted her, instinctively sensing her goodness. He found himself lingering longer in the evenings, listening to her read aloud, her voice a soothing balm to his weary soul. A spark ignited between them, a subtle dance of glances and shared smiles, a connection that transcended words. One evening, as a gentle rain fell outside, Du Yun returned to his home to find Mi Ran sitting beside his sleeping grandmother. The only illumination was coming from the burning embers in the hearth. The flickering light cast dancing shadows on her face, highlighting the curve of her cheek, the delicate line of her jaw. "She sleeps soundly," Mi Ran whispered, her voice barely audible above the drumming of the rain. Du Yun nodded, his eyes fixed on her. "She works too hard," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "She worries about me." Mi Ran smiled softly. "She loves you very much," she said. "It is a rare and precious thing." He looked at her, a question in his eyes. "And do you have someone who loves you like that?" Mi Ran's smile faded, replaced by a flicker of pain. "I did," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "But they are gone." Du Yun felt a surge of protectiveness, a desire to shield her from whatever pain haunted her past. He reached out, his hand hovering hesitantly over hers. I would like to be that someone," he said, his voice thick with emotion. Mi Ran's eyes met his, and for a moment, the world outside ceased to exist. There was only the two of them, the rain, and the unspoken promise that hung in the air. She leaned in, the touch of his rough hand surprisingly soothing, a prelude. Her lips brushed his, soft and hesitant at first, then firmer, a spark igniting between them, a fire that had been smoldering beneath the surface. It was a kiss born of shared hardship, of mutual respect, and of a growing love that defied the boundaries of class and circumstance. It was a kiss that sealed their fate, a silent vow that they would face whatever the future held, together. The intimacy they shared was a fragile, unspoken thing, a refuge from the harsh realities of their lives. Mi-ran, despite the growing affection she felt for Do-yoon, knew she could not reveal her true identity, not yet. The danger was too great. The stolen letter, still hidden within her belongings, was a constant reminder of the forces arrayed against her. To earn a living and maintain her disguise, Mi-ran established a small stall in the Maehwa marketplace. Using her literacy and knowledge of the wider world, she wrote letters and petitions for the villagers, often helping them navigate the complex and often corrupt legal system. Her stall, under the sign of Mi-gong-ja, quickly became a hub of activity, a place where the oppressed could find a voice, a glimmer of hope in their otherwise bleak existence. Her activities, however, did not go unnoticed. Trung-laun Kim, a former royal inspector who had retreated to the Jiri Mountains in disgust at the court's corruption, had been quietly observing the village, seeking individuals who could be recruited to his cause, a rebellion against the tyrannical rule that gripped the land. He had heard whispers of the clever scholar in the marketplace, the one who dared to challenge Byun-hakdo's authority, however subtly. One day, Trung-laun Kim, disguised as a simple traveler, approached Mi-ran's stall. He presented her with a seemingly innocuous document, a request for clarification on a minor land dispute. But embedded within the text was a coded message, a test of her loyalty and her understanding of the political landscape. Mi-ran, recognizing the hidden meaning, responded in kind, weaving her own coded reply into the document she prepared for him. It was a delicate dance of words, a subtle exchange that confirmed her allegiance to the cause of justice and her willingness to fight for a better future. Trung-laun Kim, satisfied, revealed his true identity and his purpose. He spoke of the growing discontent in the land, the suffering of the people, and the need for strong, courageous individuals to rise up and challenge the corrupt regime. He saw in Mi-ran a valuable ally, a strategist, a voice that could inspire others. He proposed an alliance, and that he had heard of a strong young man from her village that may be of use to them. Meanwhile, Do-yoon, oblivious to Mi-ran's secret life and the growing rebellion, found himself increasingly tormented by jealousy. He had seen Mi-ran interacting with Seo-jun, Byun-hakdo's lackey, in the marketplace. Although Mi-ran had explained that she was merely gathering information, trying to understand the extent of Byun-hakdo's corruption, Do-yoon's simple, trusting nature struggled to comprehend the complexities of her actions. He saw only the surface, the seemingly friendly exchanges, the whispered conversations, and his heart twisted with a pain he had never known before. One evening, fueled by his insecurities and a misplaced sense of betrayal, Do-yoon confronted Mi-ran. "Why do you talk to him?" he demanded, his voice raw with emotion. "To Seo-jun? He is a bad man. He works for Byun-hakdo." Mi-ran, startled by his outburst, tried to explain. "I need to understand what they are planning," she said patiently. "It's for the good of the village, for your grandmother, for us." But Do-yoon, blinded by his jealousy, refused to listen. "You lie," he accused, his voice rising. You care for him. You prefer him to me." Mi-ran's patience snapped. "How can you say that?" she cried, her own anger rising to meet his. "After all we've shared? After I, she stopped, biting back the words she longed to say. The truth she could not yet reveal. Hurt and confused, Do-yoon stormed out, leaving Mi-ran heartbroken and frustrated. He wandered aimlessly through the forest, his mind a turmoil of conflicting emotions. He knew deep down that Mi-ran was not the kind of person to betray him, but the seed of doubt, once planted, had taken root. It was in this state of emotional turmoil that Do-yoon stumbled upon a hidden encampment deep within the Jiri Mountains. He saw men training with swords and spears, their faces grim, their movements purposeful. He recognized Trung-laun Kim, the man who had visited Mi-ran's stall, overseeing the training. Before Do-yoon could react, he was surrounded, weapons pointed at him. Trung-laun Kim, however, recognized him, his eyes narrowing in assessment. He remembered the stories Mi-ran had told him of the strong, simple hunter, the one who had defied Byun-hakdo. He saw in Do-yoon's troubled face a reflection of the suffering of the people, a potential for greatness waiting to be unleashed. "What brings you here, young man?" Trung Lone Kim asked, his voice firm but not unkind. Du Yun, his voice still thick with the remnants of his argument with Mi Ran, blurted out his pain, his confusion, his suspicion. He spoke of Mi Ran's interactions with Seo Jun, of his fear that she was involved in something dangerous, something he didn't understand. Trung Lone Kim listened patiently, his gaze unwavering. When Du Yun had finished, he spoke, his words carefully chosen. Mi Gongjia is a patriot, he said, his voice low and resonant. She works for a greater cause, a cause that will benefit all the people of this land, including you and your grandmother. He explained the nature of their rebellion, the need to overthrow the corrupt officials and restore justice to the kingdom. He then revealed the truth about Mi Ran, that he was really a she, and her family's tragic past. Du Yun listened, his initial shock giving way to a profound sense of shame and guilt. He had misjudged her, doubted her, and in doing so, he had almost lost her. He realized the depth of her courage, her selflessness, her unwavering commitment to a cause greater than herself. And he understood, finally, the true meaning of love, a love that transcended jealousy and fear, a love that demanded trust and sacrifice. He knew what he had to do. "I want to join you," Du Yun declared, his voice firm, his eyes filled with a newfound determination. "I want to fight for justice, for Mi Ran, for my people." Trung Lone Kim smiled, a rare and genuine smile that lit up his weathered face. "Welcome, Du Yun," he said. "You have the strength of a tiger and the heart of a lion. You will be a valuable asset to our cause." Du Yun's training began immediately. He proved to be a natural warrior, his innate strength and agility honed by years of hunting and woodcutting. He learned quickly, mastering the use of the sword and spear, his movements fluid and powerful. But more importantly, he learned the discipline and the strategy of warfare, the importance of unity and purpose. Meanwhile, Mi Ran, unaware of Du Yun's transformation, continued her work in the marketplace, gathering intelligence and subtly undermining Byun-hak Do's authority. She had discovered, through her careful questioning and observation, that Byun-hak Do was planning a major crackdown on the village, intending to seize the land and enslave the people. She knew she had to warn Trung Lone Kim, but she also knew that she was being watched, that any overt move could expose her and endanger the entire rebellion. The tension in the village reached a fever pitch. Byun-hak Do, emboldened by the impending arrival of reinforcements from the capital, became increasingly brazen in his oppression. He and Seo Jun roamed the marketplace, extorting money and goods from the terrified villagers, their cruelty unchecked. One day, as Mi Ran was tending to her stall, Seo Jun approached her, a lecherous grin on his face. "Mi Gongjia," he purred, his eyes raking over her. "You've been avoiding me. I have a proposition for you, a chance to align yourself with the winning side." Mi Ran, her heart pounding with fear and disgust, forced a smile. "And what proposition might that be, Seo Jun?" she asked, her voice steady despite her inner turmoil. Seo Jun leaned in close, his breath hot on her ear. "Byun-hak Do grows tired of waiting," he whispered. "He offers you a choice. Become his concubine and enjoy a life of luxury. Refuse and face the consequences." Mi Ran's blood ran cold. She had underestimated Byun-hak Do's ruthlessness. She knew she had to escape, to warn Trung Lone Kim, but Seo Jun's grip on her arm tightened. Just as she was about to make a desperate move, a voice rang out, clear and strong. "Let her go, Seo Jun." It was Du Yun, but not the Du Yun she knew. He stood tall and proud, clad in the simple but sturdy uniform of the rebel army, his eyes blazing with righteous anger. He was no longer the hesitant, slow-witted hunter. He was a warrior, a protector, a leader. Seo Jun, startled, released Mi Ran and turned to face Du Yun, his face contorted in a mixture of surprise and rage. "Du Yun?" he sneered. "The village idiot dares to challenge me again? You've chosen the wrong side, fool." "I've chosen the right side," Du Yun retorted, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. "The side of justice, the side of the people." The marketplace fell silent, the villagers watching in stunned disbelief. The confrontation they had long dreaded, the clash between the oppressed and the oppressor, had finally arrived. Seo Jun drew his own sword, a cruel, curved blade that glinted menacingly in the sunlight. "You'll regret this, Du Yun," he snarled. "I'll make you pay for your insolence." Du Yun didn't respond. He simply drew his own sword, a simple, straight blade, but one that felt perfectly balanced in his hand. He stood his ground, his eyes locked on Seo-jun, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and determination. He was fighting not just for Mi-ran, but for his grandmother, for his village, for a future free from tyranny. The fight was short, brutal, and decisive. Du-yoon, fueled by his newfound training and his righteous anger, moved with a speed and precision that surprised even himself. He parried Seo-jun's clumsy attacks, his own strikes swift and sure. Within minutes, Seo-jun lay disarmed and bleeding on the ground, his arrogance replaced by terror. Du-yoon stood over him, his sword pointed at his throat, his face a mask of cold fury, but he did not kill him. He lowered his sword, his eyes filled with a mixture of disgust and pity. "This is not the way," he said, his voice low but firm. "We will not stoop to their level. We will fight for justice, but we will not become monsters." The villagers, emboldened by Du-yoon's courage and his victory, erupted in cheers. They had witnessed the impossible, the overthrow of their oppressor, the dawn of a new hope. At that moment, Byun-hak-do arrived, surrounded by his guards. He saw Seo-jun lying on the ground, the cheering villagers, and Du-yoon standing tall and defiant. His face turned purple with rage. "You dare defy me?" he roared. "Kill him! Kill them all!" The guards charged, but they were met by a force they had not anticipated. From the surrounding alleys and rooftops, Trung Laun Kim's rebel army emerged, their swords and spears gleaming in the sunlight. The battle was joined. The villagers, armed with whatever makeshift weapons they could find, joined the fight, their pent-up anger and frustration unleashed in a torrent of righteous fury. The marketplace, once a place of fear and oppression, became a battleground, a symbol of the struggle for freedom. Du-yoon, fighting alongside Mi-ran, who had retrieved a hidden sword from her stall, moved with the grace and power of a seasoned warrior. They fought back to back, their movements synchronized, their trust in each other absolute. They were a force to be reckoned with, an embodiment of the love and courage that fueled their rebellion. Trung Laun Kim, directing the battle from a vantage point, watched with pride as Du-yoon and Mi-ran fought. He had seen their potential, their unwavering commitment to justice, and he knew that they were the key to victory. The battle raged, the clash of steel echoing through the village. Byun-hak-do's guards, though initially confident, were no match for the combined force of the rebel army and the enraged villagers. They fell one by one, their arrogance and cruelty no defense against the righteous anger of the oppressed. Byun-hak-do, seeing his forces decimated, his power crumbling before his eyes, tried to flee, but Du-yoon intercepted him. Their confrontation was brief but intense. Byun-hak-do, fueled by desperation and hatred, fought with the ferocity of a cornered animal. But Du-yoon, guided by his training and his unwavering belief in justice, was stronger, faster, and more determined. He disarmed Byun-hak-do, his sword at the corrupt official's throat. "This ends now," Du-yoon declared, his voice ringing with authority. "Your reign of terror is over." Byun-hak-do, his face contorted with fear and defeat, could only whimper. He had been brought down by the very people he had so cruelly oppressed, his power shattered, his arrogance exposed. With Byun-hak-do captured, the remaining guards surrendered, their will to fight broken. The Battle of Maehwa was over. The villagers had won their freedom. The victory, however, was just the beginning. Trung Laun Kim, with Du-yoon and Mi-ran at his side, rallied the surrounding villages, spreading the message of rebellion, inspiring others to join their cause. The movement grew, gaining momentum with each passing day, fueled by the people's yearning for justice and a better future. The stolen letter, the one Mi-ran had risked her life to protect, proved to be the key to exposing the corruption at the heart of the Osan court. It revealed the names of the treacherous officials who had conspired with Byun-hak-do, their crimes laid bare for all to see. The rebellion marched on the capital, their ranks swelling with each victory. The corrupt officials, their power base crumbling, their crimes exposed, were unable to withstand the onslaught. The tyrannical rule that had gripped the land for so long was finally overthrown. A new era dawned, an era of justice and equality. Du-yoon, hailed as a hero, was offered a position of power in the new government, but he declined, preferring to return to Maehwa with Mi-ran, to rebuild their lives and to serve their community. He used his newfound influence to ensure that the village prospered, that the people were treated fairly, and that the mistakes of the past were never repeated. Mi-ran, her family's name cleared, her father restored to his rightful position, finally revealed her true identity to the world. She and Do Yoon were married, their love a beacon of hope, a testament to the power of courage, resilience, and unwavering belief in a better future. Their love story, born in the midst of turmoil and strife, became a legend, whispered in the homes and marketplaces of Maehwa, a reminder that even in the darkest of times hope and love can blossom, and that even the simplest of souls can rise to become heroes. The scars they bore, both physical and emotional, were reminders of the battles they had fought, the sacrifices they had made, and the enduring power of their love, a love that had not only saved them, but had helped to save a nation